And we're back. Good evening, everybody. Back live video. No more jail. No more
We're back,
phone
finally.
calls. Under the Radar is back, and I'm your host, Chad Sherwood. With me, once again, out of jail, David Griggs. David, how you doing?
I'm better now. How was your holiday, Chad?
My holidays were absolutely wonderful. I very much enjoyed my time. I
Well,
did have this one client that kept calling me, needing me to bail him out, but
well, mine
I
was
had,
worse. I mean, okay. Here's the thing. I had planned over the holidays well, what I was going to call a mission of goodwill in history. And what I was going to do is that I was going to travel through Kansas and Missouri and do what I could to get that rivalry renewed. Chad had me thrown in jail. When was the last time you had one of your own clients thrown in jail? And what you said is that it was it was in the best interest of justice, but I hadn't done anything wrong yet. So they finally let me out New Year's Eve, and I head out to the bar, and this is like when I called you the second time, and the Xavier Georgetown basketball game was on, but right as the game was ending, they turned the channel to watch some stupid ball drop, and they wouldn't change it back. And it was a big misunderstanding, and I got thrown in jail again. But now I'm back out.
I mean, 7 to 10 years
Why would you have me
removed.
arrested?
So I think we did accomplish something there, David. Got to look on the bright side.
Ironically, the reason I got out or that they let me out was because when I got arrested the second time, they weren't supposed to let me out the first time. It was a major hyper technicality there, Chad, that you pulled out.
Well,
But
hey, we do our best, and actually, Dave, if you think about it, the whole reason I had you thrown in the first time was so we could get to these technicalities and get you out because I knew what would happen if we tried to put David Griggs, Xavier Hoops, and New Year's Eve all together on the same day.
yeah,
It's never a good combination.
right.
Uh,
Oh,
with that, it's been a few weeks since we've had an Under the Radar podcast with the holidays. We do hope everyone out there had wonderful holidays, and we are now into the heart of the what I'll call phase two of the college basketball season, the conference regular season play. Almost every single conference out there has tipped off its first games. A couple that are just going to be starting up this weekend, uh, there's very few non-conference games left. A few here and there, but not much.
yeah, and really all that's left now outside of our adopted team in JIT, we're going to discuss them here in a little bit, is the made-for-TV conference games. Xavier and Cincinnati playing in February, more or less your showcases from here on out. So at this point, yeah, we're into it, and it is conference play. I mean, it really got in full swing, I think, this past Monday, and between Monday last night and then so far tonight, I mean, what a great night of entertainment. They've tried to kill it with realignment, and I think in a lot of ways, a lot of the intensity is gone, but at least so far, conference games are still conference games. I
Well, I'll
mean, it's
tell you.
been a great couple of nights.
Yeah, these last 3 nights there have been great games on every night. Exciting games. That Ole Miss Kentucky game last night, for example.
Yeah.
I know we're on the Under the Radar. That we'll reserve that for the bracket racket coming up on for the weekend. But um, what we wanted to do for tonight, since it's been a while since we've been on with Under the Radar, we're going to do a quick run through of all of our Under the Radar conferences, as well as take a look at our top tens and a little preview of next week. It's going to be maybe a little longer show than normal. We're going to try to move quickly here, though, to get through everything in time. Um, let's just start by refreshing everybody what an Under the Radar team is. David, what's our definition of Under the Radar?
It's a team outside of what we call the multi-bid leagues, and we've identified those as the American Athletic Conference, the ACC, the SEC.
So sorry, I almost choked when you said
Yes,
American.
we're starting right at the top. Yeah. So the American sort of the ACC, SEC, Big East, Big Ten, Big 12, Mountain West, and I always miss one.
The A10, I think.
Yeah, yeah, the A10. Those are the power conferences, so they're disqualified. The other disqualifier is a team that's ranked nationally in the top 25. Two notables are, Gonzaga, not in one of the Power Nine, but in the rankings. Old Dominion, who we have been talking about since really November, we can't talk about them tonight. They're in the rankings. So it's anybody outside of the top 25 and outside of the regular multi-bid leagues, although the American is looking worse than some of the leagues we will be talking about.
Right. The other two teams we're not going to talk about, Wichita State in the top 25. Northern Iowa is still hanging into the coaches poll. They dropped out in the AP, but so those two teams are also disqualified. So we actually have 4 teams from our traditional under-the-radar conferences in the top 25. I'm sorry. Yeah, 4 teams in the top 25. So good for those teams at least. But
Yeah.
You're out of our show. Get out of here.
Yeah.
So on that note, David, let's kind of just run through all the conferences briefly, kind of take a look at who do we think is our favorites here in the conference based on what we saw in non-conference play in the very early conference play. These are the teams we're watching in these conferences, and do we think any of these teams have a shot in at-large bid if they mess up in their conference tournament? We're not looking at a true multi-bid conference here, but we're looking at a team whose top team
could be inside the
could be in the at-large discussion, but their second-place team definitely won't be. That type of situation,
right?
Which is not the situation we have with the Missouri Valley, where we've clearly got two good teams.
Possibly 3, and again, the Missouri Valley is a traditional UTR conference and a great game. You're under the radar game of the night going on right now. My God, has this been fun!
And give a shout out here to all those fans of Evansville and Loyola that retweeted our under the radar game of the night tonight. Thank you to all of them. Why don't we start here with the Missouri Valley since we're on the subject, and then we'll go back and do the rest in alphabetical order. Obviously, Wichita State and Northern Iowa we're not talking about. These two teams here, though, Evansville and Loyola. I've been high on this Evansville team all season. Heading right into the season, I said, look out for this team. This could be a fringe bubble team here.
Yeah, and you had them in your preseason bracket. And as far as I know, you're the only person that did a preseason bracket that had them in there. So you identified them really early. Now, I still don't know if they're going to go all the way up inside the bubble, but they're going to have their chances. They really need this. I think they need to pick up this win the night. Their record's a little bloated. It's got some meat on it, but not enough. I really think that they're going to have to take down Northern Iowa, which they did, didn't they?
They won the home game against UNI already. They will have a road trip to UNI. They've got 2 games with Wichita State.
Yeah.
The problem they had is they went to Indiana State, and that is an in-state rivalry. That's their biggest conference rival in MVC games, but they lost the game, and this is not a good Indiana State team this year.
No, and again, with that is going to I don't want to say it cancels out the UNI win, but when you look at the entire body of work, and that's a phrase we hear over and over again, you can't ignore the Indiana State loss. It's on there.
Right.
So that really did kind of set them back after they took a huge step forward. This Loyola team, they have a real bloated record, but it was amassed against what I thought was pretty weak competition for the most part. So I kind of wrote them off. I've seen them play a couple times here and there. I've really been impressed with them tonight, though. And we say it every year. It's like, oh God, why didn't they put some beatable teams on their out-of-conference schedule that would have at least given themselves some shots at notable wins? Because as good as the Valley is this year, your chances are still limited. It's not like the other 9 conferences where you have 6, 8, 10, and in the case of the ACC, seemingly 15 and 16 shots at notable wins.
Yeah, exactly. This Loyola team, I don't think they're going to be able to get up there into any serious at-large bid consideration unless they did something crazy like sweep Wichita State. Which is probably too much to ask for. They already lost the game at Northern Iowa, so all they've got is the return game there.
That was a fun game to watch too, I believe.
Yeah, it was 67-58 final. But I think that this Loyola team is going to be a very dangerous team as the season goes on, and it's a team that whoever ends up getting them in the conference tournament, and this might be your 4th place team, which means Wichita State gets them in the semifinals of the MVC tournament.
Yeah,
it would be a very dangerous team, and I would not be shocked to see them playing that Sunday in the MVC championship game.
I wouldn't either, and this is going to be. It's just one of those leagues. The way it's shaped up, it's going to be a really fun league. There's a lot of snake pits in there. I know Evansville's fairly empty tonight, but it's not easy to go to Northern Iowa and win. It's not easy to go to Illinois State and win. I mean, I think even though you had no NCAA tournament caliber teams last year outside of Wichita State, the committee watches and they know what a team's home record is, and when you go to places that only lost 2 and 3 in home games a year, which as weak as Illinois State appeared to be overall, they still only lost 3 games at home. Wichita beat them. I think that those road wins in this league had a lot to do with why they got that 1 seed.
Right. We're not even mentioning this Illinois State team, which is kind of your 5th team here in the MVC. They're the only team that's beaten Old Dominion on the season. They gave Wichita State a game at least. They lost it, but they gave them a game the other night. So this is, I think it's going to be a really fun conference tournament. I know we're 2.5 months away from that still, but
it's going to be a fun season.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Let's kind of run through the rest of the conferences here in alphabetical order. I'm going to go up to the top here with the America East conference. We're heading into the season. I really like this Hartford team, and they've been very disappointing. I think that the clear team to beat here is Stony Brook, especially if they went out and won at Washington.
Yeah, and that was a really, really surprising win. I was happy to see this Stony Brook team do
Lee
that.
Delvecchio predicted this one. I'll give him credit for that.
He actually did. I don't know what line this Stony Brook team would wind up on, but that almost certainly gets them on the 14. Unless they, post a 9-9 record in conference or something like that. But I don't think anyone else is even really in their class. Vermont's been disappointing. UMBC has. You've got UMBC, you've got Maine, and you've got Binghamton, and they are redefining what it means to blow goats. It is just astonishingly bad. And one of the better teams in the league is this UMass Lowell team who's transitional. When one of the better teams in your league is a transitional team, your league is bad.
Right. Looking at the standings page right now, UMass Lowell is already 2-0 in conference at present in first place. Because Stony Brook's only played 1 game so far. But the Atlantic Sun, David, we were really high on this Florida Gulf Coast team. So pretty much all season so far. I've got to tell you right now, and I think the last bracket that we did a couple days ago, I did have Gulf Coast still in there as the conference champion. I think if I did it tonight, it's going to be South Carolina Upstate at this point.
Yes, we were high on this Gulf Coast team, and for the last couple of weeks over Christmas, I think Gulf Coast was high. I mean, they've just played awfully bad.
Well, now I've got to give them we got to give them little credit here. They've been out a few players. They've had some injuries. They played a game that they almost lost to I don't even know if it's D2 or D3, a team I never heard of before, Ave Maria, other than the song. They almost lost that game.
When you're they lost to a song, almost.
Yeah, almost. They were missing 3 of their 5 starters in that game, plus one of their key bench players, including Bernard Thompson, their best player, was out for that game. It was pretty much Brett Comer and 4 guys that off the end of the bench that didn't get much action playing against Ave Maria. They then got pounded at Santa Barbara in their last non-conference game. If they get healthy, they can put it back together again. But right now, Upstate's playing the best basketball in the ASUN.
And I hate to say this for a league that has been so much fun to watch over the last couple years. I mean, they lost Mercer, they lost East Tennessee State. This league is exceptionally weak. Upstate is pretty good. Nobody else is. Nobody else is even remotely good.
No. Well, North Florida won at Purdue, and actually Purdue has shown they have a pulse this year. They gave Wisconsin a game tonight, so.
Yeah, the Ospreys. That was a good win for them. I'm a big fan of their coach, and I say that I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I know was
Matt Driscoll.
Yeah, Matthew Driscoll. Thank you. He was the associate head coach at Baylor. I'm a little surprised because it seemed like they seem to be improving at a really quick rate, and their success seems to have stalled a little bit the past few years. But he is a good coach, despite that. But anyway, moving on.
Moving on, Big Sky has been all about Eastern Washington this year. Weber State, who we knew that Montana was going to be down, Weber State, we thought would be up there again. They're sitting at 5-8 right now, already off to an 0-2 start in Big Sky play.
Right. One of their worst seasons in recent memory. I realize they lost a lot, but Weber State and Montana, particularly Weber State, has always relied heavily on junior college players. So with that comes a lot of turnover. But they just didn't.
I don't know if that Eastern Washington is going to lose a game in conference play this year. That's how much better they are than anybody else in this league right now.
Yeah, they may not. And again, like they've had a couple of disappointing losses, games you would have expected them to win, but they did get the win in Indiana. They really took Washington to the wall, and Seattle led for most of the game, just couldn't get it done. No one else is in their class. I mean, it's very possible that they will run the table. And how about Southern Utah, last year's Centenary Award winner, all the way up to 323? There's at least 20 teams behind them in the RPI right now.
They already have 2 D1 wins, including a road win at Texas San Antonio. So yeah. Good for Southern Utah. Definitely not in the Centenary conversation this year.
Yeah, and since it has been a while, again, quick reminder to our listeners, Chad, what is the Centenary Award?
The Centenary Award is the award we hand out here at Hoops HD every year to the team that is the worst team in Division One. The past winners were Towson, I believe, 3 years ago. Grambling won it 2 seasons ago, and last season's winner was Southern Utah. Named in honor of the Centenary Gents, who were pathetically bad for several seasons until they finally decided to give it up and drop down to Division Three.
Yes,
we're keeping their memory alive in D1 by naming this award after them.
Right. Okay.
The Big South Conference, Coastal Carolina, I think, is at the verge of running away with this conference already. They began I think the second best team in this conference after Coastal was High Point. The very first conference game of the season, Coastal played at High Point and went there and shellacked them.
It really was impressive. Cliff Ellis has done a fantastic job with this team. They have a couple notable wins already. They went to Auburn and won, and I realize Auburn is very much rebuilding, but 11-3 overall on the road at one of the hardest places in conference to play, and like you said, just absolutely pasted them. I don't like that the tournament is at a predetermined site or.
It is, but it's on Coastal's home court.
Yeah, but I do like that if it's going to be there, it's at least on the team of the home floor or the team's home floor that should have it anyway. This is a really good Coastal team, and you wonder how high up on the seed list are they going to be? They were a 16 seed last year. Do they get up to a 15 or a 14? And can they put themselves in a situation where they have a competitive chance of maybe pulling that upset in the round of 64?
I think they got to get to a 14 for that, and that they may need to run the table here the rest of the way.
Because the win at Auburn, unless Auburn just really goes on a rampage and wins all their home games in conference play, I don't know how much credit they're going to get for that. I mean, it was a feel-good win at the moment, but it isn't something that is necessarily going to impress the committee, even though it was an SEC team.
Right. And another unimpressive thing is the fact they did schedule their maximum number of non-D1 games. They played 4 of them, so that 11-3 overall record is really only a 7-3.
Yeah, and I really don't like it when teams do that. I mean, I'm not as far off the page as Lee Del Vecchio is, but you really shouldn't play more than 2. You really shouldn't play any, but no more than 2, and yet you're allowed to play 4, and if you decide to, I don't know what you're doing.
Well, the rule is kind of funny because you're allowed to play 4, but if you play them in an exhibition game, that counts as one of your 4. So it's a bit of a strange rule there. But moving on to the Big West, Long Beach State played one of the most ridiculous non-conference schedules I've seen in a long time. Amazingly, the strength schedule is only 3 right now and not 1. I'm not certain who else is above them, but
it's 3 because strength of schedule, for whatever reason, does not factor in game location the way RPI does. It was the hardest schedule. I don't care what the strength of schedule says.
I'm actually looking at Kansas 1 and VCU 2 to
wasn't even close.
They played it. They played everybody of note, and they played them all on the road. Only 6-10. Didn't win any of the big games, other than the 1 out of 2 games against Xavier. But
Right. And they did beat Kansas State, but you said they didn't win any of the big games. Okay,
Yes, I said none of the big games.
Okay,
They beat Kansas State. They also beat San Francisco State at Fresno Pacific, so that's
Yeah.
about on par with that, I think.
Oh, well, there you go. I mean, another team slacking off and scheduling a Division II opponent. When is Long Beach going to finally man up?
Yeah. This Long Beach State team could run away with the conference because of what they did. They could just, because of so much losing, finish in the middle of the pack. I don't know what's going to happen with them.
What's interesting, the way the RPI works, and I don't want to bore everybody, but 25% of the RPI is essentially the 30 games you play. So 30 games account for a quarter of your RPI, and it's your overall winning percentage. Long Beach is 84th in the RPI despite only being 6-10. That is way, way below 500. They have a chance to double their overall winning percentage, and if they do that, that RPI is going to be very healthy.
The RPI is going to be healthy, but the resume is not going to get. I don't think this is an at-large resume, even if they run the table in the conference. I
think they needed to win at least one.
Yeah.
Of those heavyweights.
Now, if Long Beach is not the team, we both liked Irvine and Santa Barbara heading into the season. Santa Barbara, I think, is kind of disappointed a little bit. Irvine,
is disappointed a lot a bit.
Mamadou Anjai has been out for most of the season. He's only played 4 games so far, so and he is due back for their conference opener coming up this weekend. So I'll give Irvine that credit at least. They may be able to start playing. I mean, when you got a guy that's about 15 feet tall in the middle there, he's and about 800 pounds. I think that's.
Wow.
But David, I know you're a little high on this Hawaii team also.
Yeah, I am. Well, I mean, they're great, and they're unbelievable in Hawaii. And if they can somehow petition the NCAA to allow them to play all their games in Hawaii, including the NCAA tournament, they're going to be a pretty dangerous team.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, and I know it's easier said, but they have not been impressive on the road. I've caught them on good notes. I think they have it in them to be good, but man, they
And UC Davis here had a great non-conference 10-3 overall, best winning percentage of the conference right now. I think this team is a fraud. Not a fraud as in that they're awful, but I don't think they're anywhere near a tournament near the best team in this conference.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I like Long Beach despite them being 6-10.
I'm going to throw out a team here that we're going to get to our top 10s in a little bit. This is a team that just missed making my top 10 that I don't think we've mentioned at all yet this season, but is suddenly on my radar. In the Colonial, this Hofstra team.
Yeah, and this was another team Lee was big on, this Hofstra team. And looking at 11-4, they have, what is their best win? Would you say that, they went to Wilmington and won. They had a nice win against Stony Brook. Out of conference, they stayed with NC State for a little bit, but all that. I don't know. I'm surprised you have them that close to your top 10. I think they're the better team in the Colonial, but I am so not big on the Colonial.
I'm looking at them a lot more, especially because I thought heading into the season I liked Northeastern, I liked William and Mary. Northeastern had some big wins early on, but it's really fallen apart. It fell apart later on with losses. They lost to Wilmington already in conference play,
right?
And their Florida State win is no longer nearly as good as it looked.
Not even close. And again, sometimes things look better, especially earlier in the season. You think things are going to be bigger than what they ultimately turn out to be. And just another note: last year, the Delaware last year's champions, they are still celebrating, and it shows. They've been drunker than me this year.
Well, I do want to give congratulations to Delaware. They beat St. Bonaventure back on December 30th, their first win of the season. It may be their only win of the season. This is one of the biggest ball parts I've seen in a long time.
It really is. I don't know how. This is one of the most drastic contrasts from being as good. And they were really good.
Yeah, this was. We were talking a possible at-large bid for Delaware at some points last season.
Yeah. This year, I don't think they're going to quite be it.
They may still get back into centenary contention. In fact, if both of our zero-loss teams pick up wins here.
Right.
moving on to Conference USA, Old Dominion obviously not even under the radar anymore.
Yeah.
I do still like this UTEP team. I think that they still have a shot even to get into the at-large consideration. They're kind of hovering out there. You don't have very many chances. They get three of them. They get Louisiana Tech twice, and they get Old Dominion at home. Those are their all must-win game. Almost, they probably have to win two out of those three and sweep the rest of their schedule.
Yeah, there is a little bit of meat in this conference, but I mean the contrast of Old Dominion, who's really good in the rankings, and UTEP, who could land inside the bubble, and then you look at the bottom of this league, and it is you've got, oh my God, Marshall, Florida Atlantic is not that good. I mean, they've been very disappointing. Rice isn't that good, and those teams aren't even close to being the worst teams in the league. That's how bad this league is. I mean, how bad is Rice? Holy crap!
Rice, Texas San Antonio, Florida International.
Yeah.
Western Kentucky hasn't done much.
Yeah.
Louisiana. I mean, Louisiana Tech we do still like. Louisiana Tech, I think, is a good team, but they did not do what they need to do in their very few chances they gave themselves in non-conference play, and
Right.
they are. I mean, that's pretty much it for them.
I think so outside of the tournament, but having half of your league look like the Southland is better than having all of your league look like the Southland. But it's not good, and it really poses a problem for UTEP because outside of Old Dominion, if you don't make your case before now and half of your conference looks like the Southland, I mean, you really can't lose to anybody going forward. So, yeah, I think they need one of those Old Dominion wins.
Okay. Moving on now. Sorry, I have a little bit of computer problems here.
That's okay.
Okay, froze up on me there.
That's okay,
right.
Chad. It's not like we're on the air or anything. Don't worry about it.
All right. Well, anyhow, the Horizon League, Green Bay. I'm still high on this team. They have that really nice win at Miami. They did get the split with Georgia State, who they played twice that they really needed.
Yeah.
Their only other loss besides Georgia State, they lost at Wisconsin. They lost a game to UC Irvine in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
I think this Green Bay team is still an at-large bid possibility if they slip up in the conference tournament, just like they were last year, and just missed out.
I agree, and here's the thing. I'll go further than that. They have 3 losses. I think they have room for 1 strike. If they lose a game in the regular season and they lose in the conference tournament, I think they're okay. But any more than that, I think they got 1 more strike. And in saying that, it's not. I mean, it's never easy to go on the road and win every single game when you're the team that's being hunted, because you are the showcase game for that league. Everywhere Green Bay goes, it's going to be Wright State's biggest home game. It's going to be Detroit's biggest home game. You know, Cleveland State's biggest home game probably. And it's going to be hard to win them all, but I think this team is good enough to do it. I think they can go 15-1 and get to the NCAA tournament as an at-large.
I'll agree with you there. I mean, the most dangerous game, I think, is their games against Valpo. This Valpo team is a pretty good team this year, sitting at 14-3 right now. Not a tournament caliber team, but if you told me Green Bay's not getting this automatic bid, I would bet that Valpo's the one that got it. So
right.
The Ivy League has not yet started its conference play.
Right.
But I mean, Harvard, I think, is clearly the team to beat. I know you like Yale. I think you're a little more high on Yale than I am.
Actually, no. I tried to clarify that. I don't think Yale's as good as Harvard. I think I mentioned that. It's just I was like when I put Yale in the tournament over Harvard, it was just based on merit so far. I do think Harvard's the better team.
All right. Well, I'll get a first-hand account of Yale. If anybody out there is going to be at the game, shout out to me on Twitter. I'll meet up with you. But Friday night, I'm going to be at the Yale NJIT game, cheering on our adopted team. My first ever trip to the Fleischer Center there in Newark. Yes. Hopefully, there'll be more than one seat available at the game, so I can actually get in. But
yeah, and it's going to be Twitter greatness. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to try and meet you there, Chad.
Oh, that'd be great.
Well, you need to. I don't know. There might be a problem, but I'm going to try.
Well, are you allowed in the state of New Jersey
Well,
anymore?
I'm hoping that you can get that cleared up.
I'm gonna have to work on that.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean Harvard should win the conference here.
Yeah.
Uh, moving on. Metro Atlantic. I don't know that anybody could challenge Iona, even though they are not. Monmouth is a team that's 4-0. Iona already lost a conference game, but I still
Yeah.
think Iona runs away with this conference.
Well, when Tim Cluse is coaching, you're always going to lose some conference
And
games.
it was the game at Monmouth is the one that he lost. So
Yeah. So Monmouth is more than a little surprising. I was not at all even looking at them as being a team that'll finish in the top half. Yet here they are 4-0 with a win over Iona.
I may try to get up to a Monmouth game later this season as well. I tried to do this a little earlier, but I didn't get a chance. But they're actually the closest team geographically to me, I believe.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Long Branch. Okay, but anyhow, let's moving on to the Mid-American. I'm really high on this Buffalo team right now out of the MAC.
Yeah, I like this Buffalo team too. I mean, and again, they only have 3 losses, and 2 of them were against heavyweights. You know, Kentucky, and who was the other one?
Wisconsin,
Wisconsin, yeah.
Team, yeah.
Yeah. So who's fairly decent.
On the other hand, they also lost to St. Bonaventure, who then lost to Delaware. But let's.
And that might exclude them just on principle. There, I mean, it's just you can't. You need more than 2 degrees of separation from Delaware this year. But this is a really, really good Buffalo team, and again, the MAC is good enough, and there's enough snake pits to where if they only drop a game or 2, I think they might be on the bubble and maybe even inside of it.
Well, now the MAC does have one of the only 2 one-loss teams in the country that's not in the top 25, along with TCU. Central Michigan now 11-1.
I thought they were last night at Toledo.
I thought they were a complete phony until they went to Toledo last night. Now,
yes.
I still think this is a decent Toledo team, underachieving so far, but.
Yeah,
maybe Central Michigan's for real. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they are, and they really, really shortchange themselves with their out-of-conference schedule. I mean, you want to challenge yourself without overwhelming themselves. They certainly did not challenge or overwhelm themselves with the out-of-conference play. 4 games against non-Div 1 teams. And again, what are you doing? Whenever you do that, you're taking a pass on making any sort of case for yourself, not just for the NCAA tournament, but for the NIT even. I mean, why would you schedule that week, especially when they're pretty good? I mean, they could have, had they scheduled harder, they would have beaten better teams and more people would be paying attention to them.
Well, you know what? I mean, if their only loss was at Bradley, a very winnable game for them, a game they probably should have won. If they won that game, we're looking at a top 25 team right now also because we know the way the voters go. They see undefeated and they vote for them. So.
Right. But lots of good team. Another team, talk a little bit about Bowling Green because I thought they would take their usual place at the bottom of the conference, but really good out of conference. Akron's good. This conference, because of their out of conference records, you're going to have some teams with really healthy RPIs if they're able to separate themselves here. This is a tough Mid-American conference.
Well, you go back to my preseason previews. I actually like this Bowling Green team. I thought this was the team that could surprise us this year. They don't have any huge wins. Their best win was at Detroit, but I think they're going to be competitive this year, and I think we're going to have a really fun season here in the MAC.
It's going to be, and for those of you that don't know, the rivalry in this conference is phenomenal. You have the 6 Ohio schools, you have the 3 Michigan schools, and it isn't on a big stage like the power conferences are, but I think it is a great league to watch. It's a blast. The quality of play is really good. The rivalries are really good. They play in those bandboxes on campus that just get really energetic. It's one of my favorite leagues. It really is.
All right. Let's keep moving on here. The MEAC. We're looking at a 16 seed, probably a play-in game here.
Yes.
North Carolina Central's your best team. I don't know that there's much more we could talk about on the top of the MEAC.
We do have a centenary candidate.
Well, I said the top of the MEAC.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Let's talk about the bottom of the MEAC.
Oh, the top of the MEAC. My pick was a SWAC team. We'll get to that later. Alabama A&M. FAMU is running away with the Centenary Award, I think.
Absolutely. Only Central Arkansas is the only other winless team out there. FAMU, they were my preseason pick for the Centenary as well. This team, they're on the APR ban list. Pretty much everybody on the team was gone. As of August, I think they had 1 or 2 scholarship players on the entire roster. That's how bad it was heading into the season. Ken Palm does project that they're probably going to win 2 games this year. I don't really even see that. Their best chance might be a home game against Bethune-Cookman in January 31st.
Yeah.
But I mean, they have not even been close. Let's see, their closest game was, well, they lost by 5 to Stetson. That's their only game that was even within 10 so far.
And they're so bad, and this is just my theory. FAMU, located in Tallahassee. Florida State has been disappointing this year. I think FAMU is so bad it's contagious, and that's what's wrong with Florida State.
There could be something to this here.
Yeah.
We already discussed the MVC. The Northeast Conference.
Big finish coming up, by the way. Loyola up 71-70 in the final, less than a second to go here. So really, really big road win for the Rattlers. Or Ramblers, I'm sorry.
Ramblers, if they can pull this off, yeah. Northeast Conference. We talked about a lot about St. Francis Brooklyn, which is St. Francis College of Brooklyn. We talked about Bryant earlier in the year. Yeah. I've kind of leaning now towards the other St. Francis University of PA.
Yeah.
At the moment as my pick, but this is kind of a conference I think can go any way here.
It really is. It's been disappointing. I mean, it's never one of the better leagues by far. It's actually always one of the worst, but it is worse than normal this year. And yeah, St. Francis University, not to be confused with St. Francis College,
right,
was not a team we were big on coming into the year, even by NEC standards, but they've looked as good as anyone, probably better than anyone else. I like them too.
Yeah, if I have to pick somebody right now, it's who I'm picking, and that may change 5 more times before the season's over.
Right.
The Ohio Valley Conference. I think you got 3 really interesting teams here: Murray State, Belmont, and Eastern Kentucky, which seems to be the same 3 teams every year.
Yeah, none of them, like Belmont, the last couple of years, I think has been pretty close to the bubble. No one in this conference is close to the bubble. Yeah. Murray State is probably the most disappointing 11-4 team in history. They're a good team, or at least they have a lot of potential. Their schedule was atrociously weak, and yet they've lost 4 games. I said coming into the year that I thought they would win 30, and even then they would be cutting it close because their schedule was so weak. But they really have gotten rolling lately. I do think they're the best team in this league, and I think they are potentially dangerous even if their paper doesn't indicate it, because they really do have potential. They have a high ceiling, and when they play up to it, they can beat really good teams. It's just that they don't always do it.
I'm still haven't figured out this Eastern Kentucky team. They sandwiched in between losses to East Tennessee State at home and at Florida Atlantic. In between those 2 losses, they sandwiched in a blowout win at Miami. And I still haven't figured. It's one of the most perplexing games so far this season, honestly.
Yeah, it really was.
And maybe this team really is the one that lost to East Tennessee State at Florida Atlantic, and that was just Miami not bothering to show up that night.
Yeah, well, it was the holidays. Wow, but yeah, that really was one of the more surprising results. And yeah, like you said, what a weekend! Losing to FIU. Blowing out Miami, and then losing again.
Moving over to the Patriot League, I think this is one of the conferences we liked really going into the season that was just going to be really competitive, so even, just top to bottom. And I look at the Patriot League right now, Holy Cross, who beat Harvard, sitting there at 0-3 already in the conference. I don't know who's going to win this conference.
Right, I don't either. And
I've gone with Army, but it's really been more of a sentimental pick. The team that's never made the big dance before. Let's go for them.
Well,
but
I was really liking this Army team, and then they went out to SM or USC, and they looked really good. Got the nice win there, and then you realized they beat USC. And there was really nothing spectacular about that at all. 1-2 in the league. And they really haven't looked that good in either of those losses.
Both losses were at home also.
Yeah, so. And like you said, the team that's on top right now is one of the teams that I thought was one of the weaker teams in the league, and that's Colgate. So the basement is up in the attic right now.
Yeah, and you want to look at RPI. American and Lafayette are the two best RPI teams. They're 8-6, 9-5. I think we're going to kind of do a pass here on the Patriot League. We'll come back and talk about them in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Maybe things will start to sort themselves out there.
Right.
A team I am high on in the Southern Conference, Wofford. I'm very high on this team. They are in my top 20, my under the radar top 10 right now.
Yeah, they're in mine as well. I really like them, and I don't know how dangerous they are as far as getting out of the round of 64, but Mike Young done a tremendous job with this program. They didn't really dominate the league last year, but they did win the conference tournament. It's their third NCAA tournament in 5 years, and it looks like he's going to make it 4 and 6. He's just done really well, and you kind of wonder why no one else has kind of picked up on him. He's done so well at Wofford.
Yeah, I mean they already won at Chattanooga, which I think was probably their toughest road game in conference. I do like this Chattanooga team. They struggled at Samford to win though, which is probably the worst team in the conference. So
yes,
not quite there every night, but they won both those games already.
Right, and East Tennessee State, another team that's good that you need to watch for, but this Wofford team really is good.
The Southland Conference, I think it's pretty much Stephen F. Austin and nobody. Sam Houston State has a bit of a pulse. They did beat Eastern Washington earlier this year, but I don't know that's going to be enough to knock off this SFA team.
Yes, and you got to wonder if SFA wins out, are they inside the bubble? I don't think they are.
I don't think they are, but I think they're going to be in the. They're definitely going to be on the bubble. They're going to be in the discussions.
Yeah. 12-3, a win at Memphis, and had they gotten that win during the and again it's just crazy. It was early afternoon. They were hosting Northern Iowa. It was a fantastic game. I believe it went into overtime. Had they gotten that one and won out the rest of the way, I think they would be inside of it. But at Memphis, I just don't know if that's enough.
I agree with you. I don't think it's enough. One other note here from the Southland, down at the bottom, Central Arkansas. Also winless.
Yeah.
I think they're a little right now, but if FAMU finds a way to win a game, Central Arkansas right there on the Centenary Award watch list.
Yep.
The SWAC.
Yes. Oh, the SWAC.
Well, we have a team with a winning record here, but it's Alabama State who's ineligible.
Yes, but we have a team that actually is worth mentioning in more than just a condescending, backhanded compliment way. How about Texas Southern? And it's perplexing to say that, but Texas Southern is pretty good.
Texas Southern is pretty good. Now they Monday night had a real tough game at Southern. They pulled it out on a foul call on a rebound under the basket. It was an awful call, I thought. But they got free throws to win the game. They really deserved to lose that game, but they are 2-0 in conference already. Beat Kansas State, and I think they won one other game.
They went to Michigan State and won. One of the most. I have never been so surprised by but they followed that up with again a near win at Auburn, and they also beat Kansas State, and that is astoundingly good for what has been for I don't know how many years in a row, 8, 9, 10. Not just the worst league, but so far much worse than the second worst league. It's ridiculous. Really good showing for Texas Southern here.
I believe it's been close to 15, 20 years since a SWAC team avoided a 16 seed in the tournament.
Yeah.
Whoever has won the SWAC has been the 16 seed. There is a shot. I mean, Texas Southern probably has to win every game remaining, and we may need to get an upset or two in other conference tournaments with some pretty bad teams getting in. There's a shot they can get a 15 seed this year.
Let me ask you this, and have they ever avoided the first four since it went to the 68-team format?
The SWAC champion has it. It did. Okay. I can't quite quote the year.
Oh, I believe Southern avoided it. The year
But it was a regular 16. It was not a 15.
Right. Okay.
It was a non-first four 16. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Over in the Summit League,
Oh.
this North Dakota State team, which I thought had lost too many pieces and was not going to be competitive this year, looks like the best team in the conference right now.
Yeah, they're not competitive this year, but neither is anyone else in this
Right.
league. So I do think they're the best team in the league. That's sort of faint praise. They're not nearly as dangerous as they were a year ago. Last year they were an at-large caliber team that went to the round of 32, and deservedly so. This year you're looking at a 16 seed.
Yeah, well, I think whoever wins this conference is a 16 seed. I still think Denver has the talent, but we've spoken many times about how that has not translated into wins under Joe Scott recently.
Right.
Almost done here. The Sun Belt, Georgia State. I think Georgia State, to the extent they may have had a shot in an at-large, probably killed it by losing at home to Texas State Monday night.
Yes. It was so disappointing. This conference has been plagued more than anyone outside of maybe the MEAC of not being able to get its best team to the NCAA tournament. That's largely their fault because they played the conference tournament at a predetermined site and they don't do anything to help out the best team. Last year, Georgia State was clearly the best team. They were so good that you thought that they could have really squeezed somebody and maybe gotten an upset in the round of 64, losing in the conference tournament and landing outside the bubble. They will be outside the bubble again, even if they win out to the championship game. That's not to say it's not important because it's much better to be on the 13 or 14 line with a competitive chance to win than on the 16 line. But they'll need to win the conference tournament to get in, and so will everybody else.
Well, and again, I mean, obviously winning out, you want to get that number one seed in the conference tournament, especially the Sun Belt does give a bye to the top two seeds into the semifinals. So you want to at least get that, be one of those top two teams.
Yeah. And Western Kentucky is not in this league anymore to go 8-10 and then win the tournament. So,
but they might do that in Conference USA. I would not. They might,
yes.
West Coast Conference. Obviously, we have Gonzaga as one of the best teams in the entire country.
Yeah.
But BYU. What do you think about BYU? I had them in my first four in the bracket I did a couple days ago. Do you think this is a tournament team, David? Where do you have them?
I have them about where you do, like on the bubble, maybe right inside or right outside of it. I do think that they're a tournament team. I think they're a tournament caliber team, I'll say that, but they just haven't put together the credentials they need to be a solid team, and their margin for error is really small because outside of Gonzaga, who they've already played and lost to, there's the game at St. Mary's, but that's really it as far as notable road wins in this conference that are available.
Well, I'll throw this out there. I mean, the other three teams I had in the first four line in this last bracket with BYU were NC State, UNLV, and Xavier. All three of those teams are going to have lots of chances. Right. Maybe not so much for Vegas, but for the other two, definitely. Lots of chances to pick up that quality wins and multiple quality wins to really prove that they belong in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
BYU is going to have a road game against Gonzaga at the end of the season, and that's it. I mean, the St. Mary's games are good. I like the St. Mary's team. They're not NCAA tournament good.
No, they're not. No, they're not. But I do think the committee would give them credit if they go to St. Mary's and win.
Right.
Yeah.
But other than that, every other game here in the West Coast Conference for BYU is a trap game because you're going to get penalized pretty bad for losing it. And these are some pretty decent teams. These are competitive teams in San Diego, San Francisco, Santa Clara. These are teams that in most of these conferences we've discussed tonight would probably have them winning the conference.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, outside the bubble, outside the discussion, it's still tough to beat.
Finally, David, if I had told you 5 years ago that a team could potentially win the conference regular season and the postseason tournament in the WAC and still be in a play-in game, you would have laughed at me.
Yes, I would have. Very hard. I would have laughed my ass off.
If New Mexico State wins out, they may be in the play-in game.
This league is atrocious. Oh, God. And I'm just... To give you, 2/3 of the, oh my God, all but, if I'm counting this right, all but one team, and that's New Mexico State, is outside the top 250 right now. Is that correct?
Correct.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry. Well, Seattle's at 246 in the RPI right now, so
Oh, well,
outside the
excuse
top
me. I did not. Oh, well, I
Yeah.
don't want to overstate how
Yeah.
bad the league is.
It's-
Excuse me for not.
the only team with a record above 500 is ineligible Grand Canyon. They're 9-8.
Yeah. So any loss is for New Mexico State is considered a bad loss, and any win is not even remotely considered a good win. Essentially, their profile will either stay the same, which is it's already bad, or it's going to get worse.
And the only reason I would say New Mexico State's the team to beat here is just because I mean, at least they went out and played somebody, so they're a little bit tested,
Yeah.
and they do have a win over UTEP. So
Yeah. So, I mean, it's the Dayton Invitational. Whoever wins this tournament is probably heading there.
I guess we might as well hit the one last team that we did not discuss that is
Yes.
under the radar, our adopted team. We're fresh off a win tonight over Maryland Eastern Shore, now sitting one game under 500. The NJIT Highlanders, a shot Friday night when I'm there to become CIT eligible.
Yes. And
At least
that would
for now.
be, this is, I really, really hope that place is packed and loud. I mean, after they beat Michigan, it was for their game against St. Francis College. I hope it's that way again. Yale has had a good year. They've had some decent wins. They won at UConn. It's exciting for NJIT to get a home game like that. I really hope the fans come out for it. I hope they win and storm the court again.
And in NJIT's favor, they still have 4 non-D1 games on the schedule here coming up through the next 2 months. They've also got a home game against Hampton and a home game against Delaware State, both very winnable.
Yeah.
Road trips to Dartmouth, Maine, South Alabama, and Howard. I think they're on pace for that winning record. I'd be shocked at this point if they don't get it.
And just the win over Michigan alone, I would hope the CIT takes them if they get that winning record.
All right. With that, David, I know we've gone a little long here. I want to quickly run through our top 10s and then do a very quick preview of the upcoming week. You want to start us off here, your top 10?
Why don't you? Because I'm still. This is hard to pull up without any arms here. Okay.
Arm there.
Yeah.
My top 10, I've got BYU number 1. I think they are the best of these teams that we've been discussing tonight.
Yeah.
Number 2, I've got Green Bay. Number 3, I've got Harvard.
Okay. Well, I also have BYU number 1. I didn't originally, but I didn't realize that they had to be in just one of the polls to be ineligible, so I had Northern Iowa there. But yeah, I have BYU 1, Green Bay 2. I believe we're the same there. I have Harvard a little lower, and as impressed as I've been with Harvard, I was not impressed with what they did at Virginia. It was so rough.
It was Virginia, though.
Yes. So
I can't penalize a team for getting beat no matter how bad they are when you're going up against one of the top 5 teams of the country.
Yeah. Okay.
That's just my thought on the game. I don't even look at that game. After that, I've got UTEP as 4.
Yeah, and I would probably swap out my 4th team because it was Georgia State, who we just talked about. UTEP definitely belongs in here. I kind of left them out as an oversight. I like them, but like we said earlier in the show, the best they can really hope for, other than those wins against Old Dominion, is to not hurt themselves. I don't know if they'll be good enough to end up inside the bubble or not.
At number 5, I have the Buffalo team that I think that we discussed. I think it's the best team in the MAC right now.
Yeah, really good.
At 6, I have Wofford, our team out of the Southern there. They do have a win over NC State. 7, I've got SFA.
Yeah, I got them at 8. I have this Loyola team that just won. I'm starting to like them a lot. I have them at number 7.
Yeah.
Loyola, Illinois, not to be confused with Loyola, Maryland.
Or Loyola Marymount.
Or Loyola Marymount.
I got Eastern Washington still in here at number 8. I don't know if they made your list or not, but
they would have, because I would have swapped them out for yeah, one of the teams that I didn't have in here. So
Okay. The last two teams, I have Evansville at 9. I did make this list before this loss
yeah,
tonight, and then at 10 I had Georgia State.
yeah,
I also threw a pair of honorable mentions. One out to St. Mary's, who I still think uh, I like them, but they've got to win some of these BYU/Gonzaga games, and of
yeah,
course one to Texas Southern.
right. Who we talked about earlier. Another team that I mean, I didn't put them in on purpose but the more I think about it, the more I think I should have, and I still like this Long Beach State team. I mean, I think they're going to have a big year in the Big West. If anything, they might have a hard time adjusting to the weaker competition.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see what Long Beach State does, and we'll know a lot more about them in about 2 weeks once they've played a handful of games.
Yeah.
Anyone else on your list there that we missed?
I don't believe so. Hawaii, but I would have taken them off. So.
Just a very quick preview of the next 6 or 7 days worth of games. Some interesting games coming up. Thursday night, Georgia State has a road test at Louisiana Lafayette, last year's conference tournament winner. And in the Summit League, North Dakota State's at Omaha. That Omaha team may be the best team in the Summit, but they're not even eligible.
Right. I believe they're in year 3, or is it year 4?
Year 4. So this is their last
year. So this is their last year. They'll be fully transitioned next year and eligible for championships. So they've done really well as a transitional team, and they may be one of the better teams in the Summit.
Friday night, there's only 4 games on the entire D1 schedule, but they are all under the radar games. The ESPNU doubleheader is Akron at Toledo, which looked like a great game at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
They're both disappointed, though.
Right.
And then Green Bay at Milwaukee. Milwaukee's not that good of a team, and ineligible. They're on an APR ban.
Right.
The other 2 games that night, Quinnipiac is at Monmouth, and Yale at NJIT. So there's a couple Jersey games. Again, I'll be there rooting on our Highlanders.
Yeah, and I'll be well, I'm going to try and get there.
Saturday, big Navy at Army. Sorry, to start off the day. A couple other games here. Buffalo is at Western Michigan. That was last year's one. That was last year's MAC champion.
Yeah, I think that one's going to be a fun one. This is a pretty good Buffalo team.
Let me mention this to you, David. I was watching a little bit, believe it or not, of that Ave Maria Florida Gulf Coast game earlier, and the Florida Gulf Coast announcer stated that the #1 rivalry in the Atlantic Sun is Stetson against Florida Gulf Coast, and they play each other on Saturday. But I don't think that.
Oh boy!
I don't think that's the #1 rivalry, though. In another game, also on Saturday, the River City Rumble, North Florida and Jacksonville.
Yeah, I would say North Florida Jacksonville now is the biggest rivalry. Now it was Mercer Gulf Coast,
right?
But that got split up. So
I understand Stetson Gulf Coast; they are not that far apart from each other. Stetson's never been good. Gulf Coast kind of has been.
Yeah.
On the other hand, North Florida and Jacksonville have kind of been on par with each other since North Florida came into the conference.
Yeah, I don't know. The biggest rivalry in the ASUN. What a crowning achievement and praise that is.
A few other games talk about rivalries. Penn and Princeton play their first of their 2 games in the Ivy League on Saturday.
Yeah. That does not have the
no.
heat that it used to.
Old Dominion's at Western Kentucky. I know Old Dominion's not technically an under-the-radar team anymore, but that's a pretty good road test for them.
Yeah, it will be. Western Kentucky's still very schizophrenic. They can look incredible or they can look awful. It won't be the easiest road win, but it is a game Old Dominion should win.
Harvard is at Dartmouth, who they're actually going to play twice before they play any other Ivy League foes. It's the way the Ivy League works. Your travel opponents actually end up playing each other both their games before you start heading out on the road.
Bizarre, but that's how they do it.
Except for Penn Princeton, who play their second game at the end of the season.
Yeah, Penn and Princeton do bookends. I never understood that. Why you would open and close? Well, I don't know.
Long Beach State at UC Davis. That Davis team we mentioned earlier has a really bloated record in the Big West, hosting Long Beach State, who is the much better team. So
it's worth watching though, because they do have a good record and it is a road test. Now I do think this Long Beach team is tested.
Yes,
so a little bit. A little bit, yes.
Sunday, a game I'm really looking forward to now based on what we saw tonight. Wichita State is at Loyola.
Yeah. Oh man, is
This
this
should
going
be
to
a
be
good
a
one.
showcase? Yeah, and I hope those fans pack that place. I hope it's loud and crazy and fun. It should be. You know, they don't. How? When was the last time Loyola hosted a ranked team?
Probably Wichita State last year, but
Yeah.
let's,
Oh yeah, you're right. And then Butler before that.
yeah.
So it doesn't happen often. That was my point.
No. But this Loyola team has a legitimate chance to win this game, and
Yes.
unlike last year's game.
Hmm.
Um, Monday night, very late schedule in college basketball overall because there's some kind of football game going on. I think I
Yeah.
heard about. Is it Alabama playing?
It's a playoff game, I think.
Playoff
Yeah.
game. Okay. Anyhow, yeah, Ohio State, Oregon, whatever.
Right.
The I mean, the only games that are there are under the radar games, but they're not much there. Probably the best game on Monday night schedule is Coastal Carolina at Campbell.
Yeah. Oh wow.
A road test for our Big South favorites.
Yeah.
Monmouth is at Rider that night. North Carolina Central is hosting a game. But Tuesday night, here's a big one for us, David. Tuesday night, Stephen F. Austin's at Central Arkansas.
Oh god. Well, if Central Arkansas wins that, they are disqualified from winning the Centenary, and SFA is disqualified from existing.
That's pretty much it for the next few days here. Just want to check on one other team here. One other game that is coming up. It is actually Wednesday night, the 14th. Very big game, one of our favorite games of the year. Harvard at Boston College.
Yes, two under the radar teams. I do think Harvard is. I think their overall attendance has been dwarfing Boston College's, who can't seem to get more than 2,500 people to any of their games, including their conference opener the other night. It's kind of a mismatch. You kind of wonder why Harvard would go on the road and play a team like that that's so far beneath them.
And I just want to throw a date out here for you. As we're trying to find it here, I believe it was about 2007.
Yeah.
This was the last time that Boston College actually beat Harvard.
Yes, and
teams that play each other
year.
almost every single year they play each other.
Wow.
It is, I believe, it's a 6 or a 7 game winning streak right now for Harvard against a team that claims it's in the ACC.
Yes, and it should increase. So, wow.
All right. Anything else you want to discuss here tonight, David? Any other final thoughts?
No, I believe we hit it all. It is exciting to see conference play start. I mean, like we said at the top of the show, the last couple of nights have been really fun. The one thing is, I mean, if you're like us and you do follow the under the radars, it is with the exception of a very few cases like in the West Coast or the Missouri Valley, the chances you don't get to see those better teams play up and try and take down a power conference team. So. And at this point, all of the hay is in the barn for the most part. So if you haven't made your case by now, the best you can do is to not stub your toes. But I still love the conference portion of the season. We're going to be going through each conference like this week by week, every week. So, and again, we'll follow it all. And I'm kind of rambling here. Take me home.
Well, I'll tell you, I agree though that. In my opinion, there's really are 3 parts to the regular season. The non-conference part, which is almost like a little appetizer. It's fun. There's some really good games,
and for under the radar, it's really important because you need your quality wins. Then.
But this the conference season, both under the radar and with the major conferences, this is the meat of the schedule. This is where you're going to really prove where you belong in your conference, where you rate against your conference teams, and where you're going to get those matchups that are going to be very even matchups.
Yeah.
And you're going to figure out your seeding for the conference tournament, and for almost every team we discussed tonight, it's the seeding in the conference tournament is going to decide whether you have a shot to really make it to the NCAA tournament or not, because you're going to need to get that automatic bid.
Especially with the Horizon and the Patriot and the Northeast and all the leagues that, the ASUN, the WAC, but who cares? I was going to say that. But the leagues that protect, especially like the Horizon League, that protect their champions either with buys or with playing the tournament at campus sites. So a lot of big basketball coming up here.
All right. Well, then, on that note, we're going to call it a night. We'll be talking to you again real soon. We might be doing another podcast later on this week. If not, we'll see you for the Bracket Racket Sunday. Another Under the Radar next week. Have a good night, everybody.